Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Moore, and this is Rumble. Welcome, and thank you for joining me on this live episode on a Monday night, March the 1st. We are here to celebrate the fact that Rumble, which is just barely over a year old here, about 14 months as a podcast, and we have crossed an historic mark for us as a podcast. Tonight, we hit our 25 millionth download of Rumble with Michael Moore. And this is, we saw this coming in the last week or so, and we thought, wow, we should have some kind of party. And then, of course, pandemic, COVID, no party. So then we thought, well, why don't we have sort of a party with you who might be watching this or listening to this? That's the thing we've done differently, is that we are, you can see this episode. The podcast itself is an audio only podcast. We've had a couple of live things we've done, like on Facebook Live, and then transported it into the podcast. But this is really the first time where I think we're specifically doing the normal episode we would be doing for Tuesday, tomorrow, on Monday night. But we decided to videotape this, and not videotape it, but actually bring it to you live here. And so you may be watching this on YouTube. You may be watching it on Facebook Live. You may be watching on Twitter's Periscope, or you may just be listening to this the old-timey way that we've done it for the first year. I'm a big believer in sound and audio and voice, and I wanted to do it this way. We do put it up on YouTube, but mostly it's the audio version of each episode of the podcast. So I love listening to people talk in their voice, and the rhythms and the beats and the whatever part of their soul it's coming from, or their heart, or their head, or their craziness, or whatever it is. And I think, those of us who make documentaries and whatever too, we know how much better the film will be sometimes if we just listen to what people are saying. And so when we decided to do this podcast, we thought, let's do this with sound. And so that's how it's been. So you can close your eyes and let your imagination create the pictures of what, either maybe it's something I'm describing, a story I'm telling, or my guests are telling a story. It's good to exercise that, whatever that is in our brain. And so that's what we've done. We were told that we'd be lucky if we, maybe, considering how many social media followers I have, maybe we'll get a million downloads in this first year. Well, we got our first million downloads in like the first 17 days. So it was like, oh, wow. Now what do? We have to really do this now. So it just seemed like maybe every couple weeks, there'd be another million downloads. I'm grateful to all of you for having participated in this for the last year. We did sort of a few days ago think, now maybe we shouldn't do this, because we're not the kind of people that want to brag about numbers, especially like really since for the last 4 years of the Trump era. It always seemed bad when anybody just started to describe a crowd size or an audience size, or how many digital downloads of your album there have been, or how many people showed up to the movie. It just all seems Trumpian now. So we thought 3 days ago, let's not do this. We'll just tell people we hit 25 million and that's it. But then we thought, now why don't we'll do this, and then we don't have to do it again till we hit like 50 million. All right, something like that. It's all kidding aside. The fact that I would live to a time where I would be able to talk literally to millions of you like this not through the auspices of any overseer. No corporation, no executive controls anything that's said and done here. Complete freedom. I don't even have to pay rent to a studio, because we were going to go do this in a studio, rent a studio and do the podcast from there. And I thought, man, I got this like guest bedroom here, this empty spare bedroom. Why don't we just make this the podcast studio? You know, all we have to do is you put a map of the United States behind me, and then once I can turn this, and I got some bookshelves there I got my Ruth Bader Ginsburg tree ornament, I think there, and then there's on the second shelf is the 16 millimeter camera that I used to shoot my first film, Roger and Me. Below that is that, I don't know if you can see that it looks, there's multicolored fabric. That is, I won the top prize at the Tehran Film Festival in Iran. I wasn't there for it, but they voted it the best film, and that's the prize. You get a Persian rug if you win the Tehran Film Festival. And then I think I have a Mrs. Maisel bag, that pink thing down there, and I got some Polaroids of our guests who've been here before the pandemic in the studio. And then my niece Kelsey and her husband Joe, they live in Seattle, and they flew here one week, and they said, we'll help you build this podcast studio. And so that's what they did. It's if I can, I don't want to wreck the thing here, but we put some stuff on the ceiling for acoustical tiles. And then what do I have over there on the shelves there? I have see that resistance row? That's a New York street sign we had made and put outside the Broadway Theater where my play was Tom Morello, and I illegally hung that on a New York City street pole. And what do I have over here? I have a thing that was given to me by this Palestinian group. And down there, I think we've got Dr. Fauci. He's next year's tree ornament. And, and then basically just a general mess because I live alone. I do my best. So this is the podcast room. That's it. That is literally it. Oh, that's my film Canadian Bacon, the only fiction film I've done, is a satire. That's the Cannes Film Festival acknowledgement that we were put into the program there, the official program back in 1995. Wow. It was actually my second film after Roger and Me. And one of these days I'm going to go back and do something with fiction instead of nonfiction. So that's it. That is the tour of the Rumble Studios. And tonight, in order to celebrate this auspicious occasion of the 25 millionth download, we have with us a number of people who have appeared on prior episodes of Rumble. And I asked them if they were free tonight, if they could just pop in for a little bit, say a few words, say hi, catch up with what they're doing during this pandemic, and maybe talk for a few minutes on some things that are going on in the news today. So we have some wonderful guests that will be appearing in the next 2 hours. I hope you stick around. My good friend Jeff Daniels, the actor, will be joining us. And Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib will also be here. And Katie Halper, I believe, is going to be here. And my old buddy from Flint, Sam Riddle. And Anand Giridharadas will also be with us. And a few more that I don't even probably know. We'll just see what happens. This is all live. It's being run by Basil, our executive producer, and the two Nicks, Nick Quaz, who is our editor, has, I think, edited just about every single episode on this. I think Donald Bornstein is with us. He's edited a couple of episodes. Layla edited an episode, and I think that's it. That's how we've gotten through the year. And then Nick Palm is with us here. He's with us here special today because we're doing this on StreamYard. And so we sort of just threw this together a couple hours ago. Hopefully it'll go okay. If it doesn't go okay, it doesn't go okay. It's just us. And I think we should just get started because we already have our first guest in the green room. He is a rock and roll legend. And it is, he was with us back on May Day, May 1st last year. We were already in lockdown, and we had one of my favorite episodes. It went long, but it was so great. And I believe is it like number one or number two in terms of downloads of all my episodes. I think it's between him and De Niro. I'm trying to remember which. That's how much attention we don't really pay to things like this, but I know he's up there because it's such a part. If you go back and listen to it, I am, of course, talking about one of the founding members of, and not only founding members, really the creative force. Don't beat me up, rest of the band. It's all good. But boy, where would we be without him when we think about the music over these decades? And he's still doing it. And before the lockdown, I went to the Barclays Center and saw his tour, and it was mind blowing. And I had seen the Wall tour like years and years ago, but I had not seen him solo and with his group, and it was so amazing, and I was so lucky to get to know him. We went out to dinner, and geez, I don't know what it's not, growing up in Flint, it's not anything you would ever expect to happen, but I am so honored to have him with me here on our podcast again here tonight on Rumble. Please welcome the great, the incredible Roger Waters. Roger.
The party starts now.
The party starts with you. Thank you for doing this on like no notice.
The party's starting. I'm going to have a sip of white wine. What do you want to know?
First of all, how are you doing?
It's been interesting. The whole lockdown thing has been sort of fascinating. It's been good in many ways, and it's been awful in many ways. Friends and so on and so forth. I miss being able to embrace people quite a lot.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird that one would miss that, but I do. However, having been in the same place since March the 12th or whenever it was last year, so that's just about a year.
Yeah.
I've seen the grass grow in a more detailed way than I have done before. But all this is, I'm sort of desperate to talk to you about what it's really meant to me, and I can't think of it because all I can think about is how they lie to us all day, every day, and how difficult it is to communicate with people, and how great it is that you've had 25 million downloads.
Let's not waste our time because serious shit is going on, and I'm dying to hear what you have to say about it, and I'd love to talk to you about it. So what should we be reading or watching regarding what is going on right now in Syria?
You should read, as far as this is concerned, you should read Aaron Mate from The Grey Zone, which is a very good, similar to your podcast. It's a website that is devoted entirely to digging out and rooting out the truth about what's going on in the world and presenting it to us in a way that is well written, but that has enough detail that we can understand and then get to make up our own minds about what we think the reality is. Because without finding out what the reality is, how can we possibly make political or social or any other decisions really about anything? Right.
I've had somebody on from the Grey Zone, and it was an exhilarating conversation. And you keep thinking, and I went and then read more on the Grey Zone. Why don't I know this? Why haven't we been told this? Why isn't this in the mainstream media? Yeah. And it's like, this is the old school kind of investigative journalism that, at least I grew up with and is sorely missing these days.
Why aren't you mainstream media, Michael? You know,
well,
I'm sure there were plenty of people back in the day, and I'm not singling out Flint because of the story, but if you go out and you say, hey, listen, the water in Flint is shit, you know, people are dying, this is a huge story, and obviously you weren't the only person telling that story, but you were a very important part of it and whatever. And yet there will have been politicians out there and people as well with a vested interest of some kind or other who go, he's a bit nutty, you know, he's a bit of a conspiracy theorist. No, he's not. He's somebody who tells the truth about the health service or the water in Flint, Michigan, or blah, 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 big pharma or big oil, all the important things that go together to make the machine that is destroying the planet that we live in. I mean, I don't know how much you get invited to mainstream. I know how much I could do. Never, ever, ever. And I'm not really complaining because most of it, I wouldn't want to dirty my hands, frankly, because they're not interested in what we're interested in and what your 25 million downloads are interested in as well. So
I gave up worrying about that a long time ago, and I realized that I could and would have an audience of millions just by doing what you said to do. Just go out there, tell the truth, right, and go to the places you shouldn't be. And go and do things that will make sure that you're not invited to the party. But you are. Welcome to the party. This is it. This is the important part. This is right. But let me. When you say that though, like say about the Flint water or whatever, there's a big part of me, and I think I might have said this sometime in the last year, and then I was told by friends and family, don't say this, but it's true. It's how I feel inside, that there's a part of me that feels like a bit of a failure in the sense that, yes, I beat the drum on what's happening to the people in Flint, and Flint still gets the shit kicked out of it, and the misery doesn't stop. I try to warn people that we're being led to war on a lie. There will be no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And I'm booed off the stage at the Oscars on the 5th night of the war when I say that, and they don't want to hear it. And I could just go down the rest of the films and things, and you'd have to ask, just, you know, where's the success of doing all this work for all these years? Now, having said that, I do get enough mail from people, and I do have enough people on social media. I hear from the millions, and it is millions, over these 30 years that are grateful for me telling them what's going on. But it's like, I think of, if you like, well, you know me a little bit. I'm a nice guy. I'm not a pariah. I'm not somebody you need to worry about unless you are trying to fuck the people over. Then I guess you should worry. But I'm not just talking about corporate types or Wall Street types running away from me. We were down there doing this thing. I was on a panel with Elizabeth Warren and some other people. And I tried to talk to her beforehand, and her people wouldn't let me talk to her. This is Elizabeth Warren now, not some Republican right winger. And then when the panel was over, I thought, well, I'm just going to go over there and say hi. And, I put her in one of my early films back before anybody knew who she was. And I've known her a long time, but she had decided at that point she was going to run for president. And man, her people just like put this block, and they took her. They swept her off the stage in the opposite direction from where the exit was. And I'm thinking, wow. And I said to one of them, really? What are you worried about? I just wanted to say hi. But it's that sort of thing. Because of the work I've done, even people you think would be on my side or would want to just say hi, I'm not a beloved figure amongst.
But Michael, just it's ripples in a pond, brother. That's the important thing. The important thing is that if you or I or any of the other people who have the faintest interest in human rights or the truth or anything sound, any sound ideas that might be efficacious for the human race, we drop our pebble into the pond and the ripples spread and they come to shore somewhere and they affect something. And it's pebble by pebble by pebble by pebble by pebble, because the forces that we are up against are hugely, hugely, hugely powerful. And they're very, very good at propaganda. So they're very, very good at explaining to the great unwashed, right? Or to our choir, even trying to explain to our choir that you and I are pariahs, that we're crazy, we're conspiracy theorists, everything's fine, you're in really good, safe hands. The Republicans and the Democrats are wonderful people. They know about government. They're doing a great job like that. Fuck you. No, they're not. You know, your president, the new one, the new dotty one, just went and bombed Syria. Yes.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Why did you do that? This is the guy who won't get back to having an agreement with Iran about them stopping the program that they've reintroduced because you treated them so savagely under the last idiot president.
And can I just say, with the Iranians, they actually have indicated that they would like to sit down. All they ask is that he remove not his sanction, just the Trump sanctions. Just take away what Trump did to us. Yeah, and then we'll sit down and we'll come to some peaceful solution. And there's like, the answer to that is, oh no. What? Why are we defending Trump's sanctions that never ever should have? We were on the road to fixing a problem. And Trump messed it up, so we have to now fix the mess that he made, and they shouldn't hesitate at this moment at all.
Can we not use the T word, please?
Yes, I know, the former guy.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, whatever.
Called. You know, you have to use the windshield wipers and get the muck off the windscreen, or you're never going to find the road.
Yeah.
The T word is muck on the windscreen. So is the B word, I have to say. I'm not a big fan of I think about...
Which word was that?
The B word.
The B word, the current word. Yes.
The current word, yeah. You know, it's just muck. And it has to be... Now, but the question is, how many pebbles do you have to drop in which particular bit of the pond for enough ripples to reach in other places on all the beaches, for the voice of the choir, which is you guys out there, you 25 million downloads, along with all the rest of you. It's billions of people in the world are in this choir, for your voice to join together in a cohesive way so that it becomes heard. Don't expect it to be heard by the T word or the B word. They are deaf to anything that has any love or reason in it. Your voice has to be heard by others who will join the choir.
Right, and we can't wait here. It's the B word. The current president needs to hear from us, the people, and if we don't like what's happening, whether all of a sudden the $15 minimum wage is out the window, or they're thinking of not doing anything against the Crown Prince for his murder of a Washington Post columnist. It's like, okay, if we don't like this, our voices have to be heard. I tell people, oh, no, give him a chance. No, it's not that we're not giving him a chance. He's not going anywhere. He's got the job for 4 years. Now we have to do our job as citizens to nudge him, to push him, to demand that he just do what he said he was going to do when he ran for president. Is that too much to ask? Are people upset to even hear you and I discussing that? I can't imagine why.
Well, you're talking about it. I'm not discussing it. I think it's a complete waste of time, the idea of nudging Biden, frankly. I mean, maybe you and I differ.
Well, what should we do? Well, no, I think I'm trying to bring in as many people as possible into integrating those pebbles and those ripples.
Well, okay, that's fair enough. That's what we should do. we should be down the pub talking to people in the public bar, or we should be at meetings, or we should be communicating like this through your podcast, which
Right.
that completely advocated. But that what people are going to hear on your podcast is what you're saying. But you may be right. I would be the happiest man in whatever this is. You can call it Christendom if you want, or you can call it New York State. But I'm in New York State at the moment. I would be the happiest man in the world if I thought that. I gather you've got Rashida on tonight. Fantastic, Tlaib. I will listen to her avidly, every word that comes out of her mouth. She's in Congress, you know, she's close. Right. If the squad can make any impression upon Biden. Oh, Christ, I said it.
You said the B word.
All right.
You have to put a quarter. You have to put a quarter in the swear jar.
I will be very, very happy. And if something happens, you know, that would be really good. But I'm not keeping my fingers crossed, and I'm going to still go on shouting my messages from the rooftops, and trying to promote this whole idea, because it affects national internal politics just as much as it does foreign policy in the United States of America, which is my platform. I stand on the sacred oath that we all took in 1948 in Paris when we had the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I actually believe in human rights, unlike Joe Biden, who we know doesn't. If he did, he wouldn't be supporting Israel. If he believes in human rights, he cannot support Israel because it's an apartheid state, which set, you know, the needs of one set of people, i.e., Jewish people who are Israelis, against the needs of people who are Palestinian, who are Israelis or who are not. And that's called apartheid. And we disapprove of it. You know, well, we did in the 70s and 80s and 90s when there was a huge movement against apartheid in South Africa. And that movement was successful. So hopefully this one will be, because it is growing. And they can't stop pretending it's not there with the ridiculous new IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which holds no water at all, as we know.
Right.
And yet, there are moves to, I bet the B word wants to adopt it as law in the United States so that he can lock people like me up in prisons for daring to criticize an apartheid regime.
Since you were on last May, those who are not afraid to discuss this issue of Israel and Palestine, there has been a larger movement that's been growing of people who say that the two-state solution, no, it's too late. It's not going to work. And I'm talking about, these are people on the left and people who support Palestinians, believe that what used to be expressed by certain Israeli politicians years and years ago, they didn't want a two-state solution. And so now a lot of Palestinians, a lot of people on the left and left-wing Israelis prefer the one-state solution, that there's one democracy, everyone is a citizen, everybody gets to vote.
Hey, I know I shout and scream and whatever, but it's not my country. So I stand on the, if there was one state between the Jordan River and the sea, and every single citizen of that state had completely equal rights under a universal law, then I would, if my Palestinian friends went, actually, we don't want that. We want our own little country somewhere else. Because I mean, they were screwed in 1948 and they've been being screwed ever since. And even the amount of land that was left after the 67 war, and they were prepared to do a deal on the 67 borders, was only 22% of historical Palestine. 22%. 78% had gone. Now it's like 6%. I mean, I can't remember. Don't quote me on that, all you trolls out there. Because I don't know. I'm happy to put my hands up and say I don't know. But yeah, they must decide. It's their country. It's not mine. But it sounds sensible that you lump it all together. You'll have to invent a new name, obviously. It can't be called Palestine, probably, though that might be the best name. And it certainly can't be called Israel. So you're going to have to think, why don't we call it the Holy Land? Okay? And everybody lives there together, and they all have equal rights. You cannot base rights upon your religion. It's insane. It's what they all complain about other places where religion has a strong hold on the populace. So,
right. Well, we've got Rashida standing by. I'm going to ask her about this also, and but I admire your bravery in this. And when you were with us last May on Rumble, you told the story of how your father gave his life fighting fascism, fighting the Nazis, fighting the perpetrators of the Holocaust. And I believe, I'm trying to remember, either he was killed, he was shot down, whatever, while your mother, I think, was still pregnant with you. Do I have that right? Or
yeah. And by the way, the anniversary of his death was 2 weeks ago. He was killed on February the 18th in 1944. And the good people of Aprilia, just northwest of Anzio, which was the battle that he was killed in, of that bridge, they have actually built a memorial to my father in the yard of a preparatory school.
Oh.
And I couldn't get there this year because, for obvious reasons, I couldn't travel. But they were there, and my heart was there. So February the 18th is a very important day for me.
Well, maybe you'll be able to go next year. Or
au revoir.
But I wanted to just again express my gratitude to your family for fighting and standing for something. And I'm sure he'd be very proud of you for how you are such a great humanitarian, and you are an activist in every sense of the word. And you've taken huge risks in doing that. And I applaud you for that. This particular issue that we've just been discussing must be resolved. I don't want my tax dollars going to this and supporting any kind of oppression anywhere. And I know that there are many people, Roger, who agree with what you're saying and what I'm saying here. This has to end. This can't go on.
Yeah, you're right, Michael. Sending American tax dollars to oppress people is actually very un-American in terms of how American people see themselves and see their Constitution. And if you read the Constitution and you abide by it, you can't be doing that. However, you have been doing it for the last 200 years, remorselessly and relentlessly. So that's a hard hurdle to get over, is to get over the hurdle of American exceptionalism and to accept the fact that this is not Reagan's shining city on a hill, though all of those policies are actually really reprehensible. It's very difficult for Americans to recognize that. But until they do, I don't think they're going to persuade their government to change its foreign policy, stop bombing people in Syria, stop sending arms to Israel, stop blah, 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 stop having relations with Mohammed bin Salman, the cutter up of journalists in Istanbul, and blah, 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 and stop behaving like good people, like a good person, like a good, honest person. Simple as that, instead of like a gangster. So we'll see. Au revoir. Rashida, I have to say, I'm so glad you're doing this program. We sort of brushing elbows or something or other. I'm so proud of you for being there. And I read everything that you and the others in the squad say in the Congress, and I watch it with great interest. And you are gaining power, and I'm so happy to see that.
Oh, thank you, Roger.
Oh, good. Oh, there she is.
How are you? Thank you so much. That was very sweet. I don't know if they told you, but I was like, my grandmother in Palestine needs to meet Roger. She would love you. She'd make you gain some weight, though. She'd really make you eat, though.
I know she would try. Trust me.
Thank you so much for speaking truth to power. I so appreciate that.
Not at all. I think it's your turn.
Yes.
Yes, Roger. Thank you so much for being part of this special episode and for being on earlier this year. Keep doing what you're doing. When this is over, when the pandemic is over, that great tour that you were working on, that you told us about, last May. Is that, are you going to go back out and do that when we can safely do it?
Yeah, it's called This Is Not a Drill, guys. And we had to cancel the one last July. We've now cancelled the one that was supposed to start this September because it ain't going to happen. And we have a new start date in 22, I think in the middle of the summer.
Okay.
And I really hope that we can do that one because it's going to be important for all of us. That will be a party.
That will be. Well, you showed me a little bit of what you were working on, and man, I thought, I can't wait for everybody to see this. This is not a drill tour. This is so let's get rid of this coronavirus or contain it in the best way we can, and get back to seeing each other and listening to music with each other again. Roger Waters, my deepest regards and my gratitude. Thank you for what you've done.
Thank you.
Before we bring out our next guest, I want to thank our underwriter for today's episode, IFC Films, and their incredible documentary film, MLK FBI. MLK FBI was directed by Sam Pollard, who is an Emmy-winning and Oscar-nominated filmmaker. His producing or directing credits include Four Little Girls, When the Levees Broke, A Requiem in 4 Acts, and Slavery by Another Name, among other fine documentaries. But, my friends, you have got to see this new film, MLK FBI. It's the first film to really uncover the extent of the FBI's surveillance and harassment of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Contrary to the whitewashed version of MLK that is celebrated today, this is the real story of our government's history of trying to quash dissent, especially dissent by Black Americans fighting for their liberation. You really can't appreciate the legacy of Dr. King until you see what he was actually up against. This documentary is a must-see. MLK FBI was an official selection of the Toronto, New York, and Telluride Film Festivals last year, and it was nominated for an International Documentary Award, Cinema Eye honors, 2 Critics' Choice Documentary Awards, as well as a much-deserved Career Achievement honor for Sam Pollard from the IDA and Doc NYC Festival in New York City. So I urge you, please watch this film now. It's available on demand and in theaters. Just go to mlkfbi.com to find out how you can watch this important film. And I'll have a link to it here, right here on my podcast description page, and that'll take you to it. And finally, I want to thank IFC Films for supporting this podcast and supporting my voice and supporting the work of excellent filmmakers like Sam Pollard. I also want to thank another underwriter of today's episode, ExpressVPN. Now, many of you who are regular listeners already know all about ExpressVPN, and I can't stress enough the importance of protecting your online activity from big tech who track and spy and profit off of you. There's actually another reason, though, that many of my listeners here love using ExpressVPN. Netflix. You see, thousands of shows on Netflix are only available outside of the U.S., so you need to change your country if you want to access these excellent films or shows. The ExpressVPN app lets you control which country you want Netflix to think you're in. Now, this is all legal, and it's a way for you to be able to see films from other places instead of just the U.S., which I encourage people to do. The ExpressVPN app lets you control which country you want Netflix to think that you're in. It lets you choose from over 90 different countries, so every time you run out of stuff to watch, you can just fire up the app on your laptop or smart TV, switch your country, and hit connect. Don't worry, you'll still be an American citizen. This just allows you to see the works of other artists from other countries. And once you refresh the page, you'll get a brand new selection of shows. It's really that simple. And here's the best part. It's not just for Netflix. You can use ExpressVPN to unlock shows or sports, other streaming services. I like using it to watch BBC iPlayer. It's free and only available in the UK. Why shouldn't we be able to watch this? So, protect your data, stop paying full price for streaming services while only getting access to a fraction of their content. Visit expressvpn.com/rumble right now and get 3 extra months of their service for free because you are a listener to Rumble. This is what they're doing to support me and to support your ability to watch and have the freedom to watch whatever you want. That's expressvpn.com/rumble. expressvpn.com/rumble. Just go there to learn more about this incredible way to be a citizen of the world.
Hey,
right.
Michael, what's up?
No. Well, like, you're going to be able to tell people that Roger Waters opened for you and introduced you to the stage.
He said my name really beautifully for someone that hasn't really met me. I was like, wow, good pronunciation there.
Yes, but anybody who's been paying attention to what you've been saying and doing about this last issue we were talking about, or any of a number of things, so many thanks to you, and it's got to feel good that the guy who gave us Pink Floyd is paying serious attention to what you and Ilhan and Congresswoman Presley and now the larger. Have you let the other ones in the squad yet? Corey Bush.
Oh, the squad is big. You're part of the squad. The squad is big.
Well,
you do not have to have the title of Congress member to be part of the squad. And I'm serious. If you're for equity and justice and just equality, you are part of the squad, honestly. We're an extension of people like you, Michael, and so many others who, are tired of the status quo and tired of things being done a certain way over and over again while people are still struggling, suffering.
Well, first of all, I wasn't going to reveal that I was already part of the squad. I thought we had all agreed that I was like an undercover agent for the squad, and that we would, now I've been outed. I'm willing to take up a new post, whatever you guys assign me to do. But seriously, can I just talk to you about a couple things that happened today? In Washington, D.C., and and can I start with the fact that I just happened to have the TV on, and there was, I believe, the Homeland Security guy saying that there's 600 missing kids that were stripped from their parents by the Trump goon squad, and they, since Biden has taken office in these 5-6 weeks, they have found 100 or so of the parents and the kids to plan to reunite them. But there are still 500 that they don't know where the parents are, where the parents don't know where the kids. It's such a mess. And this guy from the Biden administration stood in front of the microphone and he said, we have a moral responsibility to fix this. And therefore, our new position is that we are going to do everything we can to reunite the children and the parents, top priority. And then we will, he didn't say it in these words, but to offer our apology and what we did to their family. That family that has been separated, the parents who are back in Guatemala or Honduras or Mexico or whatever, they are welcome back. This is what he said today. They are welcome back to the United States. If they want to live here with the child that we snatched from them, we will help. We will help with housing. We will help with work. We will help with everything to get on the path, the quick path, the easy pass lane to citizenship. We will provide free health care. We will provide free mental health care. Everything we've done to damage you, We will spend money and we will be there and we will try to. I had tears in my eyes. I've never heard a member of any government of ours just immediately offer reparations for what was done in our name. And he's doing this before we even know how to even find the kids or the parents. Rashida, am I too optimistic here, or did I just see something that could possibly be something great?
Yes, possibly. I know one of the first things I thought is, here, my country is going to apologize for something that is going to create trauma for generations among children and their families. Yeah. That's not what they need, is an apology. They need more than that. It's absolutely important, and be optimistic, Michael, but also know this. I know Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has expressed to me directly and others about the possibility that the Biden administration will keep, what we call children immigration detention centers, especially the one in Florida, Homestead. There's rumors that they might be keeping that one open, and there's been stories of horrifying experiences for children there. I think making sure that it never happens again, and that means making sure that places like Homestead, which are for-profit, corporate-driven detention centers that make money off of separating children, making money off of detaining immigrant children. And so I hope that as we try to reunite these, innocent children back with their families and provide the care and wraparound services they need, I also hope that we make sure to have zero tolerance, no open possibility of this being repeated. And also to just like, this conversation around, ending for-profit prisons, we want to make sure that for-profit immigration detention centers are also completely closed and not again enabled by the current administration.
Because Biden said that there would be no more federal dollars going into building private prisons, but they had to clarify that and say they're talking about the federal prison system. He has not said that we won't use federal dollars to build these ICE prisons, the detainees prison. And until he's got to go all the way.
Yeah, hopefully, but it's deeper than that because, I used to be an immigration attorney, and I remember like Wayne County in Michigan or other counties, Monroe County specifically, they actually made money and had contracts with the federal government. This was not a for-profit detention center, right? It was Monroe County facility. They actually made money housing immigrant detainees on behalf of the federal government. Those contracts need to end. It's enough with this detention, the facilities where it's indefinite. I mean, we're talking about years of people sitting there not going before a judge. And this immigration system that everybody wants to continue to vilify my immigrant neighbors in Southwest Detroit and all throughout my district, or to try to blame them. No, it's the lack of action of Congress for 20 plus years. 20 plus years. I mean, Senator McCain, as well as Senator Kennedy, tried to work together on a comprehensive immigration reform bill, fell through. We haven't fixed our immigration system, Michael, and we've actually criminalized so many of our immigrant neighbors, working extremely hard. Again, they're raising their children with my children, and they have no pathway. And some of them are actually married to U.S. citizens. But because of these various, really don't make any sense laws that they put in place to criminalize people that maybe have overstayed, or a number of other things that they've listed as some sort of criminal activity. But you and I, when we look at that, we're like, no, that's trying to survive. That is, and again, if they were really serious about it, Michael, and this is always controversial from a lot of my immigrant rights advocates, and I love them to death, and they know that. But sometimes I'm like, if they're really serious, then go after the people that make the most money off of the broken immigration system, the people that employ many of my immigrant neighbors, so with no worker protection, no, poverty wages, and so much more. I mean, the abuse that we see in some of these areas where immigrant neighbors are, it's just endless. And if we were really serious about it, then, because I know my immigrant neighbors wouldn't be here, but for the fact that there are people at the border, maybe not physically like Henry Ford used to be, come on in. And the government saying, yeah, come on in, but we're not going to give you rights. We're going to pretend you don't exist. We're going to let you live in under the shadows. And that's just wrong and immoral.
Are you in D.C. or Detroit?
No, D.C. We're voting tonight. Yeah.
What are you voting on?
Well, we're a suspension of the rule to take up other bills. So it's a lot of rule votes. So it's called ordering the previous question. So this is like a step that you take to take up a bill.
Oh, so I love ordering the previous question. And if you ever need my help.
The crazy thing, so I served in the legislature for 6 years, and everything has its regular name: amendment, counter amendment. Here they have these names, and I honestly, God, think, Michael, it is intentional so that the American people don't understand what we're doing. Like, yes. So this is to take up the bill, right? Well, this is to take up, it's the rule to take up the rule that will then be the rules that applies to how we take up the bill. Like, it's just things like that.
Yeah. So you're tolerating this okay, though? I mean, right?
It's okay.
You find the humor.
I always tell my team, don't use that kind of language when we're talking to our residents. It's just, I don't ever want them to feel like they're disconnected from the work being here, because I think honestly it's been structured in a way to make people feel less connected to Congress. And right. I hope it changes. The more people, organizers, social workers, and regular folks get here, I think more and more people will embrace, they're already feeling connection now, myself and others that are now running for office and winning and being here and just getting back and saying, well, what did it just happen? We're straight shooters. We'll tell them they decided that we didn't deserve to $15 minimum wage increase, right? That's we just right. Straight up tell them.
Let me ask you about that. Yes, because I realize nobody back home in Detroit or Flint is preparing to call the question. They are. This. I don't obviously need to tell you this at all. They are desperately hoping that Congress will step in to save their very lives right now. And every time I heard somebody say, "What's the minimum wage got to do with COVID relief?" And I'm like, I can't. I'm a nonviolent person, man, but I just wanted to put on the joke. Some Republican, this is like, the anger that they have toward people, working people. Tell me, what are we going to do now that this parliamentarian, this is the guy that runs around with the Robert's Rules of Orders book?
Yeah, but Michael, let's not blame even the parliamentarian, okay? The parliamentarian did their job, which is advise and guide. Doesn't mean we follow them. There's nowhere that says that we can't overrule that decision and guidance. And they did it. They did it in the past a number of times. Guess for what?
Yeah.
Guess for what?
Right.
Tax breaks for the wealthy, for corporations. They did it a handful. I mean, if you look back, they've done it a number of times when there was a will, there was, the support. Instead, I just hope my colleagues, many of which, many of us ran on increasing $15 minimum wage. I got arrested to fight for 15. I mean, this is something that is so critically important to my residents. I represent the third poorest congressional district in the country. I offer any of my colleagues, come to my district. Come to my district. If you think this is not COVID related, understand this. If anything, COVID just told you we are past due in helping families. They just moved your timeline and they said you got to do it now, because the income inequality that we see in our country has led to more sick people, has led to people not being able to take care of their families and their kids during a pandemic. If anything, it is so interconnected to COVID. So whatever people want to try to gaslight the American people to believe it's not, it doesn't matter. What matters is the fact that we have power. The Democrats do. Vice President Harris can get up there as the president of the Senate and say, we're going to overrule you. We're going to move, because the majority of people outside of Congress, outside of the Senate, outside of the House of Representatives wants us to increase the minimum wage to 15. And by the way, all of those out there, $15 minimum wage was the compromise. It should be $24. But the compromise is $15. So I want to push back against any of these kinds of misleading or folks to believe it's not possible. Absolutely possible. Just close your eyes and imagine they're wealthy corporations. Maybe then there will be a will.
Well, we need you and the others now to lead. I know you're leading this fight, and you're right. $15 an hour is not a living wage these days. I mean, maybe it is in some rural area in Kansas or something, but the majority of this country lives in cities and suburbs, and you cannot live on $15 an hour. But that was the compromise. You're right. And now, it cannot die. Tell me it's not going to die.
I mean, with today, 22, I think, of my colleagues and I signed a letter urging Vice President Harris to stand with the people. And we're asking her, as her role as president of the Senate, she has authority to basically be able to do that. And look, people at home are not going to remember how it was done. They're going to just remember it was done and that we stood with them. The people's bailout is now. If the pandemic did anything, it exposed that we are far so late in getting our people taken care of in these poverty wages. I mean, we've been subsidizing it for so long. Michael, how many more kids have to be hungry? How many more of our mothers have to struggle for us to realize that this is the time. There's urgency. So it's really important that we continue to move forward. Again, listen to the people back home. They're telling you do it.
The people who are listening or watching us right now, what should we tell them to do? What can they physically do to not let this minimum wage increase die? But because look, every poll shows that 75% of the people want this. The public wants it.
Yes. It's incredibly bipartisan supported, like outside of Congress. The bipartisan support is tremendous. Yes.
The majority of people who self-identify as Republicans, they want it.
Absolutely. I mean, all of us, that's one thing this nation brings us together on is the income inequality. It has not left anyone out. Every single one of us have been, impacted negatively by it. But you know what you can do? You make yourself, right now, make yourself seen by government. And that means picking up the phone, emailing. I don't care if there's social media posts. They pay attention to those things, whatever it takes. And then you also humanize it. Talk about what it would mean to you in your life right now. And I think that's, again, really important. My mom reminds me all the time, like the gallon of milk, how it's just tripled in the cost right now. And she just can't imagine back then, even at that time, it was so expensive, but now it is, close to, what is it? Is it $5, $6? I can't, I always buy half of that. Yeah. So it's just unbelievable that we're continuing to ask people to do, to live with very little. It's just the right thing to do. And again, I'm really tired. We've already gave enough subsidies, these corporations that are paying our people poverty wages. Enough is enough. Right. It's time.
So people listening, and again, I'm sorry that I outed myself as a milk drinker. I knew the price of a half gallon of milk. But my friends, there is a number that you can dial, the switchboard on Capitol Hill, to speak to your representative or to speak to your senators. And that number is 202, and I'll put it right here on my podcast page, 202-224-3121. Call that number. If you don't know who your rep is, just a human's going to pick up the phone. It's an amazing thing. And you just had, I don't know, but they'll ask you what your zip code is, and then they'll tell you, and they'll say, we'll put you through to Representative. And
if you don't want I get emails all the time through the website and again.
How do I send an email to my member of Congress? What's the standard address?
Oh, I don't know if there's a standard address. I just know you can probably go to a search engine. Yeah. And because a lot of people might be listening, don't know who their member of Congress is. That's very typical. And that's okay. So you can say, who is my member of Congress? This little app thing comes up, and you can go put your address in and it'll tell you. Okay. And then right away, it will give you direct access to their website.
That's such a great idea for people to write an email and tell your story, what the raise in the minimum wage would mean personally to you and your family. I think that's a very powerful thing to do. So we shouldn't give up on this, right? I mean, the fight has to.
Any transformative change in our country, from the Civil Rights Act to being able to organize in the workplace, didn't happen because there was all of a sudden a will in Congress. It was because of movement work on the streets. This is your time to really be seen and heard. This is your time to be knocking down these doors, not physically, not like January 6th. I mean, what I mean, because they'll take it out of context, Michael.
No. We know what you mean.
Yeah, well, I know you do. But what I mean by that is, contacting them, again, they represent you, make it known, and, expose those that might not be supporting us. And I know people in West Virginia are doing that very, very well in expressing themselves. They're like, look, I'm not a millionaire like you, and you represent me in the U.S. Senate. And I'm telling you, I'm suffering. You have one of some of the poorest communities in West Virginia, and we're telling you to please stand with the people. And that's what you all can do. And that was what I mean by knocking down the doors.
I know you've got a yes, you've got a vote. Your aide just told me you've got a vote coming up here shortly.
Yes.
So just if you could, because I told Roger that I'd ask you your opinion on this, and I know it's a long thing. We don't have the time to get into the whole story of it, but what does need to happen now? Netanyahu still in charge, still calling all the wrong shots to oppress the people who live there. What can we as Americans do? What can Congress do? And how do you feel about that issue I raised with him about the 2-state versus the 1-state solution?
Yeah, so, I think it's public knowledge that I support a 1-state because I grew up in one of the most beautiful, blackest cities in the country, in the city of Detroit, where separate but equal didn't work in our history here. And I can't imagine how it would work, especially a small country as Israel and Palestine. So one of the things I've been trying to do desperately is just put a human face to what it feels like to be Palestinian under occupation, not having access to water, to, be able to thrive economically. The fact that my grandmother, she has a checkpoint sometimes in front of her house just to leave. It's a farmhouse with no houses next to it. It's just, these are
she's a huge threat, your grandmother. How old is she?
Oh, she's now, we think 83. Back then you were born in the house and, we don't remember, but we know that she's around 83 based on that. Yeah. But she is definitely, just hanging in there, but she's also she wants human dignity. This is all she knows is her land in Palestine, the farming, the people, and it's so traumatic, but also just unbelievably painful to feel less than in your own country. And they just, many of the Palestinian family members I have there just want equality. They want to be seen. And again, growing up, I think understanding what continues to happen to my Black neighbors and knowing that kind of oppression, won't lead to actual, viability for everyone in the region. Everybody's impacted when we deny people access to opportunities, we deny people equality. Everyone hurts. And so I hope Israelis understand that when they continue to, enhance and enable someone like Netanyahu, who runs on anti-Arab rhetoric and violence towards Arabs. It's really painful to kind of see that and enable. Yeah. The racist rhetoric coming out of his administration is, it's hard to hear, even for me, all the way here in the United States, but just for him to say the things that he says, again, making Palestinians as if they're less human. And it's wrong. And we shouldn't be funding that kind of, rhetoric or those kinds of systems.
Well, I want to thank you for the work that you continue to do. Thank you for being part of our 25 million downloads this year.
Congratulations. That's really great.
No, it's really, it means a lot that you've, you and I go way back, and I appreciate all
anybody that door knocks with me will always be my buddy. So you'll always be I'm never taking you again, but that's okay. You're definitely my one of my BFFs. So I appreciate you.
You're not. Yes, the reason you can't take me is I slow things down. But
you do.
People want to talk. People want to be in a movie. That's the problem. And
you bring a camera, and that's just not cool for doors.
It's the end of but nonetheless, you're keep doing what you're doing. Your powerful statements on the floor after January 6th.
Thank you. I saw what you wrote. I appreciate that.
You're my friend, and to think that you or Dan or any, I know. Well, I'll just say, as I've said to you from the beginning, they're going to have to go through me to get to you, and I'm not the only. No, but I'm not the. I don't have to worry about it because I'm. What's the public enemy line? I am part of a nation of millions that back what you and the others are doing to make this a better world. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Love, respect, Michael. Thank you so much.
You're not alone. Thank you, Rashida.